Can you see him in the shot?
What the fuck? Yo. Nah. What is this?
Get out of my apartment.
All right, I will. Hold on. Let me just grab my shit. Pack my shit and go. All right.
Sorry about him. How to get what you want in life as a young man from a young man. I don't know. I think that social media has a level of a barrier that makes you feel as though you're not like the people that you watch. And only once you dissolve the barrier, you realize you could achieve whatever you actually want. There's nothing different between you and the people that you watch online that you look up to or that you admire to become like. And I learned that the hard way, where I thought that my life would just be amazing and it would fix all my problems once I started making a certain amount of money. But that's not actually what happened. If you can set a goal, whether it's financial or physical or whatever the case is for yourself personally and in life, and if you can smoke that goal and if you can achieve it, especially if it's a hard goal that seems unreasonable, you start to reach a point where you think about what you actually want in life. Because when you master self-discipline, nothing seems unreasonable anymore. It's almost like everything seems like it's within reach. Like, how the fuck does a 19-year-old buy a $30,000 watch? Or move into an apartment that I paid $45,000 for just this year, myself, self-made, no rich parents, no handouts, no loans, no rich uncles. How did I get my dream car as a 19-year-old? How did I get my Aston Martin Vantage? It happened because I mastered this. That's it. I took myself from someone who was lazy, who had no motivation to do anything, and beyond motivation, I had no discipline. I couldn't see myself living out a big, cool-ass life. And it was because as humans, we have what we call pattern recognition, okay? If this is your life and your pattern and your habits are being emotionally unstable, not exercising, not being consistent in the things that you say you'll be consistent in doing, people start to then put labels on you. So if this is your pattern right here, telling yourself you're gonna do things and not doing them, letting people down, if these are your patterns, people start associating you with these patterns, okay? So that's the pattern right there. They start to associate you with these patterns. I was always known as lazy, lack of potential, or excuse me, I was wasting my potential. And I was listening to these outsiders, and eventually if you tell someone enough that they are a certain way, they will then start to behave that certain way. Waking up late, whatever it is, right? Things about yourself that you might hate about yourself that you want to fix. When people start to slap these labels on you, right? Here's a label of maybe Luke is lazy, or Luke's gonna fail because he didn't go to school, or Luke's no good for this reason. There's all these different labels, and they keep slapping these on you. And what happens is they start to penetrate the mind. Just so you guys know, this is science, the brain is neuroplastic. If you don't know what that means, I want you guys to look up neuroplastic and start really diving deep into neuroplasticity. There's studies coming out that show that the brain absolutely changes. It's malleable like rubber. And based upon the information and the feedback that you give it, it completely manifests into a physical form. So for example, they even did a study on cancer patients that truly believed that they had a will to live and they wanted to live and they believed that they had a life on the other side of their illness. They had a much higher success rate of recovery versus the people that felt like, why did this happen to me, etc., etc. So the brain is neuroplastic and the brain can change, okay? So what you need to do is you need to refeed this pattern and this loop through proof. And let me explain. If you start waking up in the morning and you tell yourself, I'm the guy that shows up on time, I work hard, I always go to the gym, I try never to miss a day, I'm consistent in all the things that I do, I hold myself accountable, people can count on me, etc., etc. You start feeding yourself this good positive information. Even if it's not true, you start feeding your brain and your limbic wiring, your limbic system in your brain, you can look into that as well. You start feeding this to your brain, okay? And like I said, the brain is neuroplastic. You will only do what you believe you can actually do. If I tell you, I'm gonna grow my company to $1 million a month, and you're like, $1 million a month? People make $40,000 a year. How do you expect to blah, 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 blah? I know that my brain is impenetrable. You can't tell me that information and try to discourage my goal or what I'm going to do, because anytime I've ever achieved something in life, I had to see it happening before it happened. So if I start giving myself all this positive feedback from a neuroplasticity perspective, we're just gonna say neuro P, my brain will literally change. And if I can change my brain, I can then change my behavior. So all these things that I was feeding myself to be the truth actually start manifesting as the truth. If I tell myself I'm the guy that can do things that I don't enjoy doing consistently, I do it all the time, you start to manifest as that physical form because the brain accepts that that is who you are. And then you know what slowly starts to happen over time? These negative labels that people have slapped on you start to go away. You know why they start to go away? Because they start not to be true anymore. The problem is when someone labels you with a certain thing and you acknowledge it to be true in your wiring, your brain accepts that thing as the truth. When you interrupt that pattern by fixing your brain as it is neuroplastic, and you give yourself positive feedback and reinforcement in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, you give yourself positive affirmation, your brain literally changes in shape and in structure. There is science to back it. If you think I'm bullshitting, you can look it up. So the brain changes. So if you can change your neuroplasticity and you can change your brain and you can wire it differently, you have to start thinking, if your goal is financial, how does the guy that makes $1 million a year think? How does the guy that makes $1 million a year act? How does the guy that makes $1 million a year treat other people? How does the guy that makes X amount of money do whatever the case may be? So you start figuring out what all these traits are of people that are successful, and you start to emulate these things, and you start checking your boxes, and you start ticking your boxes, and you start saying, I am this thing, I am that thing, I am this thing, I am that thing. For example, if I was a smoker and if I wanted to stop smoking, and I used to vape all the time, what I used to do when people would ask me when I was trying to quit vaping and fail, oh, Luke, why aren't you vaping? I wouldn't say I quit. I would say, right now I'm trying to stop. But guess what? In the past, I had told myself I'm trying to stop. Trying to stop, those words were associated to my brain with trying to stop, and then I would fail and I would revert back. So the day that I really decided I'm not going to do this shit anymore, you know what I started saying? I don't vape. I never will. I don't vape. That's disgusting. I don't vape. When the verbal cue changed, my brain accepted this isn't something that we do anymore, and the craving stopped. And I didn't want to do it anymore. Okay? So you have to understand that the brain only knows its patterns. It only knows the cues that you give it. So how did I become so successful at a young age? How did I get what I wanted as a young man? How can you get what you want as a young man? You have to start seeing yourself in a different light. You have to see yourself in a new light. You can't wake up in the morning with this mentality of you're going to get pushed around life kind of like a fucking bag in the wind. You need to wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm taking the reins. It's my life. I control it. I steer it. I guide it. I'm in control. And you start giving yourself your positive feedback and affirmation, and guess what? Then you start to say, okay, once I've mastered my mind, money is easy. Stop putting it in your head, oh, business is going to be so hard, it's going to be so challenging, it's going to be so this. If you start telling yourself, I can attain it, it's doable, it's within my reach, it's easily within my limitation, you start to manifest these things, and then they just start to happen. Guys, you think I'm bullshitting, but it's fucking true. This is literally how I became successful. And then obviously my actual business came into play, which is my marketing company, where we help businesses grow and scale, blah, blah, blah. But I had to master my mind first, because without that, you have nothing. You have nothing. Think about it. If you go to the doctor and your doctor is in shape, strong, happy, glowing, and you're like, wow, this guy is like the image of health. He's the picture of health. His advice is going to have what kind of status in your brain? High level of status. Versus the doctor that's fat, slouching, eating fucking potato chips. You're like, how's this guy going to help me get healthy? He's not even healthy his damn self. You have to lead your brain and your mind by example. You only know what you give yourself. So if you give yourself negativity, and if you replay negative in your head, that's what you're used to. If you know that you have certain tendencies, you can rewire those. If there's tendencies that you have in relation to yourself that you don't like, you can literally rewire those by just simply adding positive affirmation to your day and acknowledging that that's not something that you do anymore. That was a condition of my previous state. That is no longer a condition of my current state. Who I am now is X, Y, and Z, and you start to change. And it's funny how physically things start to manifest. When I wanted to get rich, I stopped saying I can't afford that, or that's a lot of money. I would say, I just haven't figured out how to make that much money yet, but eventually I'll get that. Guys, it happens. I'm telling you, it happens. And then eventually what ends up happening is if you treat yourself well enough and if you're good enough to yourself, and like I said, if you wake up on time and you bust your ass, no matter what you do, the money will come. The money will come, but you have to focus. If you focus on the rewiring piece first, then generating more money and more profit is probably going to be one of the easiest things that you've done. I know that sounds crazy, but it's actually true. Once you master the mind, everything precedes that. So no secret, just knowing that the brain is neuroplastic and it changes. Right now, you might be living through a label that someone else slapped on you. You know, you can pull it off whenever you want, right? You can stop being lazy overnight. You can quit your bad habits cold turkey, be a new person, look at yourself in 6 months and say, wow, I did it. And a lot of people struggle with the fact of, you know what? Like, what's the reason behind quitting the drugs? Why should I start going to the gym? I mean, we're all gonna die anyway, right? What is the point? The beauty, in my opinion, of life is change. The fact that you can change from one state to another for good is a beautiful thing. And without experiencing that, I believe that that's an incomplete life. So you should know what you look like as a self-developed and as a grown person. Not meeting that person would be a sin. So how do you get what you want in life as a young man? Whether it's material, whether it's physical, I don't care what it is. It's all mastering the mind. This is not a tactical business advice video. This is not a video where I'm gonna say, if you just do these 3 things, because that's not really how it works. I did a lot more than just 3 things, but everything came after mastering the mind. You master the mind, everything follows beyond that. And I know you've probably heard it from a lot of influencers, and you're like, oh, that's such bullshit. Well, like I said, if you stop drawing lines between the people that you see online that are trying to teach you, that are trying to help you self-develop, and yourself, and you realize that could be me, that is me, time just hasn't caught up yet, then you end up becoming that person. How beautiful is that? When you really think about it, that is the case. You might think it's not the case, but that is the case. When I started looking at guys online and they say, oh, I generated this much revenue, now I don't even wince at it. It's like, yeah, good for him. I'll be there soon. The new goals are achievable because I mastered my mind. So with that being said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. How do you get what you want in life as a young man? You rewire this. And when you rewire this, you're not gonna accept certain habits. You're not gonna accept the drugs, the alcohol, the bullshit, the fucking frat basements, people. You're not gonna accept it because it's not gonna be who you identify as anymore. And when you remove that bullshit, your life's gonna get a whole lot better. All right? I hope that video helps. If you guys wanna see more content like this, raw, uncut, just me speaking from the heart, off the top of my mind, you let me know. Everything business related is going to precede you mastering your mind. So master this, you'll get whatever the hell you want in this world. Now go work.